what do you make of the impact of an issue like Gaza on this election?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, obviously, this is a terrible day for a lot of people and millions of people, including the millions of people who voted for Donald Trump. It's a terrible day for them, and the outcomes for them are also going to be terrible. And we know that, and we should, be sad about that as well. But to your point, I think Gaza obviously played a role here. We've seen it in Dearborn. We've seen it amongst young voters across the country. And also, to your point, it's not the only issue. I think it represents a larger problem that we saw, which is not a problem of just the Kamala Harris campaign or what was the Joe Biden campaign that turned into the Kamala Harris campaign. It is a problem with the Democratic Party. And it is a issue that has been going on for decades and decades, that we have seen them refusing to, center the needs of working class people and fighting for the needs of the majority, frankly, because they have become increasingly a party that is corporate backed, which Republicans already are as well, but they're truthful about it, right? And they don't pretend to be anything else. And so what we have seen for cycle after cycle is Democrats trying to continue to paint themselves as the party for the people in comparison to Republicans, which sure, maybe they are a little better, but what everyday people are seeing and what Republicans are unfortunately exposing is the hypocrisy within the Democratic Party, that they are beholden to corporate elites, that they do have the, Mark Cubans of the world and the Reid Hoffmans of the world going out on TV and standing up for them instead of having, the actual people that you need to be fighting for in the interests of those everyday people. And so that, I think, Gaza is a big part of that. We, as Stead Herndon, I think this morning made a really great point on the Daily, which was President Biden from the beginning was supposed to be a transition presidency. It was supposed to be a transition presidency to a different type of Democratic Party, to a new generation, because his election was an election that happened in a moment in response to Donald Trump, in response to COVID, in response to an uprising of Black Lives Matter. And it was always a response to the moment. But we never really diagnosed the problem as to why Donald Trump was elected in the first place. Why was he able to win all these voters in the first place? And so by refusing to transition to this different type of party and allowing Democrats to have an open primary or any sort of conversation about change, about leaving the status quo, Democrats tied themselves to what was, by and large, an unpopular administration, no matter how many, positive policies and negative policies came out of it. And instead of being the change and the vision that we should be doing. And Republicans got to be the agent of change in this cycle. Yeah. And Democrats, by and large, were the agents of your alternative is fascism, which is true. But for people, like you said, who feel like their reality right now is I can't afford to put food on my table, or gas is too high, that reality is too bad to exist. And they don't want to continue with the status quo. And so this threat of fascism to them comes with also a promise of maybe their tides will be rise. And obviously, we know what the policies of the right are. We know what the policies of Republicans are. They are not centering working people. They are not beneficial to everyday people. It's, cutting taxes for corporations and billionaires and giving handouts and tax cuts to them. So we know what the actual truth is, but this is a problem of the Democratic Party.
100%. And because to your point, we have never seen a campaign like Donald Trump's in 2024 more openly bankrolled by the richest people in the world. And if you, I mean, it's so, oh God, I can't, okay. I'm starting to think about Sanders. Because that was Sanders's line. The billionaire class, the 1% versus the 99% of all of us that he took from Occupy Wall Street, and bless him for doing so. I mean, this is all, it was laid out there. And now you've got Elon Musk, in the bag for Trump so flagrantly, and the Democrats unable to name that. Now, I'm not saying that would have made a difference to like say, they're bankrolled by billionaires. But if you can then say, we are not taking X, Y, or Z money on this campaign, and here's exactly what I'm going to do for all Americans. No piecemeal, whatever, no first time homeowner. Like, everyone's getting, whatever it is, whether it's Medicare for all, or whether it is, I don't know, a fucking give me $1,000. I don't give a shit. Let's go to Andrew Yang territory. Whatever it is,
Mhm.
like a policy, something that is so concrete, that cannot be ignored. This is me just it's failing to use learn the lessons. And I'm someone, Usamah, who is very much on board with Kamala Harris being the candidate instead of Joe Biden, especially at that, the late stage. And of course, hindsight, wouldn't a fucking primary have been amazing? Um, that being said, when all the vibes were like, she had run out of vibes to run on, and there was real policy and real like authenticity. Okay, who are you? What do you believe? She is, I mean, let's be real, she is kind of a craven centrist Democrat. That's what she is. And so,
Yeah,
and that came, I think that was very clear.
absolutely. I mean, I think we can just look back to 2016 and, to your point, to what the Bernie campaign was running on, to see that by that point, the electorate, Democrat and Republican, already felt like the political class was a class that was aligned for elites
Yes.
and was not working for everyday people. And
Yes.
obviously, we know that Donald Trump is one of those elites, but he provided an alternative vision. It's a lie, nonetheless, right? And it's rooted and uses a lot of right-wing fanaticism and fear-mongering and demonizing of immigrants and every marginalized community you can think of to do so. But that's how they do it. And instead of building this sort of new collective vision that we haven't actually done as a Democratic Party, we've only seen bits and pieces of it come out of the progressive wings of this party. Instead of actually building that vision that says, these are the things we should be doing, we gave up on that. We had a child tax credit, we had unemployment insurance, we had student debt cancellation, and all these things we let lapse, we let stop, we stopped fighting for them. And so we just started talking about it while also talking about how crypto is so great and how we're going to fund tech billionaires, and how the Black Opportunity Plan is by giving them investments in crypto, instead of talking about actual things that people need to live their lives and improve their lives right now.
Yeah.
And that is why we've seen, terribly so, such a class realignment that is going on over these elections. You saw people who make over $100,000 move towards Kamala Harris, and people who make under $100,000 move towards Donald Trump. And what are we to say if we are the ones who are appealing to the richest people in this country and not to the poorest people? I think it's obviously been a failure of this party to live up to what they espouse to be their values in any real way, and given up when it's hard. And frankly, the response has always been, we see Republicans doing well because they're attacking right and they're attacking immigrants and they're doing all these things.
Yes.
And we think that our response should be, we should do that too. We should demonize immigrants. We should introduce horrible immigration bills. We should get a little transphobic. We should fund a genocide, when none of that is actually what voters want either. It is just what Republicans are selling to distract voters from the fact that they're also picking their pockets, when we have an opportunity to provide a vision that lifts these people up and also stops funding genocide, also protects trans people, also creates a pathway to citizenship for immigrants. And these are not unpopular policies. And I think we saw that across the country, right? Even in red states, abortion ballot initiatives are popular. People who are running on progressive policies, Rashida Tlaib in Dearborn, is outperformed everyone, Kamala Harris. And so, like, we need to be looking at how leaders like Rashida, like Summer Lee in Western Pennsylvania, who was on your show last night, obviously, talking about everyday people's issues and actually standing up for her community and winning what we used to think was, a bellwether area of the country. Right. There are people in our Congress who we can look to, who can lead us forward. And that's what we should be doing. It is time for the Democratic Party to clean up shop. There's been a class of leaders, of consultants, of donors who have long controlled and dictated what our policies should look like. And they have always been center-right, corporate-backed, and that is not policies that everyday people see themselves in.
But also, to your point, I think things are getting, because we've had such rampant wealth inequality in this country, we don't have a fair tax code, and we have so many new minted billionaires. I think that Democrats are also playing a losing game, because these billionaires will always throw down. Yeah, there'll be some crypto money that's okay. Yeah, I'm okay with Kamala Harris. And like you said, or that guy Reed or whatever, they'll dangle some money in front of Democrats. But push comes to shove, they're going to want to throw down with Republicans. They don't want a higher corporate tax rate, even if it's, keeping pace with 1952. They don't want none of that. And if they need fascism to get there, fucking great. Someone's got to, create the sort of tech tech dystopia where we all get like tagged and shit. You know what I mean? Like that. Someone's got to be the private contractor that does that and does. Who wants to get the mass deportations contract? That shit's gonna be up for grabs.
No, absolutely. I mean, be it APAC, be it crypto, be it any single fucking billionaire that has funded all these different super PACs and elections, their interests are their own. It is always their self-interest. It is never the interest of the Democratic Party. It's never the interest of people. It is never even the interest of what their issue espouses to be. Yeah. It is always just to advance the interest of a small handful of billionaires who are the same people who fund our super PACs, same people who fund our Supreme Court corruption, and the same people who are preventing us from having a fair campaign finance system. And we, for some reason, as a party, try to ingratiate ourselves to these folks as if, to your point, anything is going to change, when all we are doing is moving us away from the values that we're supposed to be fighting for and the needs of everyday people. The needs of a billionaire are never going to be the same as the needs of everyday people in this country. And we are being painted as a party that stands for billionaires. And there has to be a wholesale change from top to bottom.
Yeah, and look, Justice Democrats, you guys put out a statement basically saying exactly that. It's time to end the era of career politicians and the corrupt campaign finance laws to keep them in power. Either they can choose to step down and welcome a new generation of teachers, nurses, union workers, and everyday people to the halls of power, or they can be forced out of the ballot box. Their time is up. I mean, that like gives me chills because it makes me actually excited. Because the prospect of getting rid of, horrible Dems is very exciting. And interestingly, when so much has happened in 4 years, and yet, I mean, I guess a lot has happened in 4 years, but in 8 years, but I'm like thinking specifically of what's happened since 2020, having the majority of the Senate, nearly passing things like raising the minimum wage, and only to be stymied by our own party. Because of course we were gonna be stymied by our own party. Because of course it was gonna be some fucking centrist corporate Democrat like Kirsten Sinema. But that's not on her. She's a product of the Democratic Party. Like, she's absolutely. These are the kinds of shit ass candidates that we run up. These are the kind of people who get supported and get tons and tons of money to get reelected. And so, like, I'm very upset that the Democrats lost the Senate, but also Sherrod Brown's been in there for fucking ever. And like John Tester, didn't that dude like the first guy who like took a bunch of dark money and super PAC money? Like, these are not good Democrats.
No, absolutely. I mean, like, as long as a Democratic Party, it has included people like Kirsten Sinema or Joe Manchin or Josh Gottheimer and Henry Cuellar and the Unbreakable Nine in the House, like, we can just look back at who are the people who stopped us from advancing policies that actually helped working class people in this country. And it is a handful of corporate Democrats funded by a handful of fucking billionaires. And it's the same group of people doing the same shit over and over again. And there was a glimmer of hope at the start of the Biden administration when we actually passed some of these things. And we immediately saw ourselves capitulate to corporate donors and the corporate Democrats, because
and the Senate parliamentarian, never forget.
And a parliamentarian and an archaic policy that, doesn't make any fucking sense that we are still using. And so it's, again, like, I obviously, fascism is terrible, mass deportations are terrible, a national abortion ban is terrible. This is all fucked. And also, the Democratic Party's leadership has to answer for this. This is on them, that they allowed under their watch not just one, but two fucking Trump presidencies. Like, we should not be having close elections with Donald Trump. It should not be nail biter and then scooping up battleground states. This is a rejection of the brand of the Democratic Party that has existed for decades since we saw a class realignment in the Nixon era. And it's time for us to build it up from the bottom up, from working class movements, building union power, like folks like, what the UAW is doing, creating a movement towards a national strike, and then electing leaders that can actually be a bloc in Congress to set a people's agenda and represent the needs of working class people. And so that's why, to your point in our statement, we're very clear-eyed about what's coming up next for us, right? We as an organization are here to take out the trash of the Democratic Party and take out these corporate Democrats, be it, the Richie Torreses, the Josh Gottheimers, the Henry Cuellars, whomever continues to be beholden to the people that are losing us these elections and frankly, betraying working class people. Their time is up unless we want to just continue to lose elections to Republicans.
Yes. No, they want to narrowly win elections and then be like, oops, we lost again. And, in the group chat is lit over here in my life. But, one thing that I'm just going to read this piece because I think it's all right. Scott K. I don't really know you, Scott, but Scott said something like this. Trump or another far-right demagogue coming after him is likely to win because we're in a structural crisis that neither party can fix. So right now we're just alternating in power. Analysis from Emmanuel Wallerstein, taken from Conversation, and then he had a conversation with him. If you want to understand right-wing populism in the U.S. or indeed Europe or other parts of the world, understand it in terms of people panicking. They don't know how to protect themselves. They do see that they're in a shaky situation. They lash out at whatever. That leads to xenophobia. You find the enemy and attack it in a way that doesn't solve any of your problems, makes you feel better for a few minutes until the next time that it doesn't work. It also explains electoral fluctuations. But then he writes, and I like this part, to resolve this crisis requires creating a new system that will become hegemonic. Right now, the Republicans are trying to do that. They may succeed or there may be a fluctuation like 2008 or 2016, but this will require a lot of creative thinking. In other words, we need a new paradigm immediately. We have no moment to waste on this new paradigm. And as I said initially before you came on, this is a moment where sometimes folks like yourself get a slot on mainstream news and can say the thing. And we have to keep on saying it. My deep fear, Usamah, is that, and I feared this before and I still fear this, is that Democrats will never learn their lesson, that they will never learn to embrace the FDR populism of their actual past, that they will always try to cater to the Karens, that they will never build these multiracial working class coalitions that we know we need. And that's like just a real deep fear of mine that, okay, we might have like a few days of the ability to talk about progressive policies and, hey, the base, listen to the base, but that eventually they'll move on and be like, no, you know what? We got to move even more to the right on the border. Look at the way that borderline fucking failed, Kamala. Look at that borderline. The way they ran to the right on the border, speaking about an issue that has no vision from Democrats, no vision, and needs one. And what you just said earlier, people are okay. They would like a pathway to citizenship, immediate legalization and a processing. Like, we're going to help process people. We're going to expand the amount of work visas. We're going to, people, we are not naturally, opposed to that idea because it's a plan. I don't know.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, the right has always played a game very successfully, and the right, speaking that broadly, no matter party lines, of divide and conquer, right? That is the best of that it can do. It's always let's find who we can demonize, how we can divide these communities against each other, and so that they won't notice that we are actively picking their pockets, but we are going to stand up for them. And that's what we've seen with immigrants for years upon years. And to your point, right, we tacked right? We introduced an insane bill as a threat to Republicans that was, we are never going to win Republicans' games in Republican arenas. And we should not try to be doing so. We should not be dividing and conquering. We should see that divide and conquer approach and actually try and provide a unifying collective vision that says, these people are not your enemies.
Yes.
The people who are your enemies are the people who have $100 billion while you can't afford gas. Why is that the case? And the reason we don't talk about things like that is because the same corporate donors are the ones that control the leadership of both parties. And Democrats refuse to give up that mantle, refuse to give up that dedication to the richest people in this country, while talking slowly about things like corporate price gouging and other things. But it feels fake to so many people because Republicans expose it as fake. And we have to be an alternative. We cannot be, no one is going to look at a hard right take from Republicans and a soft right take from Democrats and say, which one do I want?
Exactly.
They want the real thing if they're selling the real thing. They're not going to want some watered down version. So we need to stop trying to feed into that and
but it's also
be an alternative.
Well, that's the thing about corporate price gouging. Like, I don't know what the fuck I mean, I do know what that means, but I think most people don't know what that means, And you need to have that broken down to you. So you're saying, I'm going to implement price controls. You should not have to pay more than whatever it is, $3 for a gallon of milk. For it's a lot more than that, but you know what I mean? Like, you should not have to pay X amount. I believe in controlling the prices. Why? Because these gas companies can afford it. They've had record profits. Look at their profits. So until they learn, or I'm threatening taking away all of their subsidies, because until they learn to treat the American people right and not gouge them, you don't get any handouts from Uncle Sam. That's how it works. So like things like that, people understand. Like, I will put a cap on how much you're going to pay. I will make the corporations pay. You were an essential worker. You put your ass on the line. They had made hand over fist money. And to your point about how to run it, because there's always this fear, right? Well, if you don't have corporate money, can you even compete in the same arena? Blah, 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 blah. Bernie fucking Sanders. I mean, a guy who with disheveled hair and just a firm belief in working people. Like, that's all it took. I mean, what a joke, Bernie Sanders. What a joke he was until he wasn't at all. Why? Because he was actually speaking to all of us. And oh my God, I can't even. I'm going to start crying now.
No, I mean, it's so real. And I mean, like, the problem is not, don't talk about corporate price gouging, right? The problem is you can't talk about corporate price gouging and talk about how corporations are evil and then go around and say, what we need to do is invest in big tech and Wall Street backed crypto. And here's Mark Cuban. These are oppositional to each other, and voters are not dumb. And we act like voters are dumb when they just understand the simple things of their actual life right now. And we are telling them that billionaires are the enemy. And then we are trotting out billionaires to give us a pitch about why they should vote for us. And obviously Trump is doing that with Elon Musk too. But like I said, there's no pretending there. They are trying to sell a vision of this is what you can become. And we are trying to sell a vision that billionaires are both a little bad and also a little good, and not always bad. And capitalism is okay. And actually these things are all fine and everything can work together, when like, that's not the lived reality for any person in this world. So,
I mean, and it's so funny because you see the right, it's like, the other thing is like, just if the right calls you a socialist, lean into it. Like again, the Bernie Sanders model, but it's like the right is at least honest on some issues where they're like, a Green New Deal would mean a massive overhaul of the economy. And it's like, yes, we do. Because it's unsustainable, and corporations are not only getting rich, but they're killing the planet in the meantime. Doesn't that sound bad to you? Yes, it does. Like, it is Democrats again, and I think it's not just how they run the campaigns. It's not just the lack of vision. It is the fallacy of liberalism and the fallacy of incrementalism and the fallacy, as you are saying, of being able to say billionaires are bad, except for some, or saying, hey, capitalism's working out really good. No, you cannot have it both ways. This is a failed economic system for the majority of people. It is obviously a failed democracy as well. But so, yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of other thoughts, but I did want to ask you because, and I see Ken Page, who trans guy in Idaho who needs some hopium. and I think we all deserve to give it to him. My hope is that, just like in 2016 birthed the 2018 squad, the 2024 Trump election will birth something inside electoralism and outside of it that is very radical and visionary. But what say you?
I think we have no choice. I think that is just our marching orders, no matter what. The alternative is to continue down a generation of fascism that targets every marginalized community and that lifts up rich people at the expense of them. And so, absolutely, we don't know what's to come. But we know what we have to do, which is electing, ending this, putting a nail in the coffin of this Democratic Party and building a Democratic Party led by, the handful of leaders we have in Congress who are actually trying to build this collective vision to unify people across all backgrounds and lift all boats against and unite us against our shared enemies, against corporations, against billionaires and right-wing super PACs that are the only reason that we don't have anything we want, right? And that is what we have to do. And it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take also taking down a campaign finance system in the long term that is obviously anti-democratic and leads to outcomes like these where we can spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and it just doesn't fucking matter because we're just throwing money at the wall. We need to get down to 101, listen to voters, talk to these Latino voters, talk to these white male voters who we obviously are mad that they voted for Donald Trump, but also that's not enough. Why did they vote for it? What is motivating those interests? And why are we not building a better vision for them? Because our vision is popular. Progressive policies are popular, from ending a genocide to Medicare for all to a Green New Deal. These are all overwhelmingly popular policies across party lines. Raising taxes on billionaires is one of the most popular policies across the country, Republicans, Independents, Democrats. Why is that not our bread and butter to be a party actually of working people? And so, to the point we made earlier, that's our hopium, is to tear down what is left of this archaic Democratic Party and build a party that's actually rooted in people and is a source of people power in the highest halls of power. It's going to take a long time, but I do think, this cycle is a crucial one to do that. And we're clear-eyed. We didn't challenge anyone last cycle because AIPAC is a piece of shit. But we're going to be challenging folks this cycle, so they will be looking out for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and thank you for all the work that you guys continue to do. And I know it's been hard for Justice Dems, especially with the losses of Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman. But you know what? It makes me want to cry. And even Summer Lee, like talking to her yesterday, it's just they got taken out by a fucking genocidal lobby and they don't care. They don't have regrets. They're not like, oh, I should have done something different. They don't care. It's really, really inspiring. They don't run scared, They're proud. They're proud of it because they stood on their word and they doubled down and they know what side they're on. I mean, we need fucking people like that. I'm so moved by that.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to a lot of folks after Jamal and Cori's losses, which are, our Congress is a less representative Congress without a Jamal and a Cori, two of the most working class members of Congress, a former nurse and a middle school principal who actually understood what everyday people go through and were representing those interests in Congress. We are a far less representative, a far less intentional Congress without them. But we should see that moment as proof of just how strong our progressive movement is, and frankly, just how impactful everyday people can be. That a former nurse, that a former middle school principal a singular super PAC have to spend $15 million against them just to defeat them. With all the other bullshit analysis that came that they wanted to say was all those things, it still took $15 million to take out these working class leaders, which to me just shows how weak our opposition is. We are not against an insurmountable enemy. No matter how much money billionaires have, no matter how much money APAC or crypto spends in these election cycles, they are on skates. They are being exposed as enemies to the working class and to the needs of everyday people. And our power is much stronger than we feel it is right now.
Yes. I mean, the reason, that's why I'm like emotional. I'm crying because it's like, I am sad about Trump, especially when I think about my daughter. But I am crying because I am filled with just like awe and appreciation for the people who do this work and who have fought so hard. And I'm like there's nothing that makes me cry more than solidarity, because that's just like that's like my kink. And so that's why. And so it's like, yes, Bowman's still going to be around, Bush is going to be around, and of course we have our current Congress people to protect and to support. And I think, it's funny because yesterday the one thing that Congresswoman Lee said was like, we need to build different coalitions, and it's something that CNN commentator too said, like, Stacey Abrams built these coalitions. She helped flip Georgia in 2020. Like, why isn't the Democratic Party like doing this, and building these coalitions that can actually win? Usamah, thank you so much for being on. Please come back.
Anytime.
We love Justice Dems and we support you. And how can we support Justice Democrats? Do you guys have is there a way that you recommend us supporting you?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things, right? One, feel free to donate or whatever you want. We're more than anything powered by grassroots donors as well and everyday people. So you can go to justicedemocrats.com and donate, but also you can go to justicedemocrats.com/nominate and nominate people in your community to be members of Congress. Think about your districts, think about your congressional districts and your communities. And if you are fed up with a failed representation of leadership that doesn't actually reflect your needs or the needs of your neighbors and your friends and family, we don't have to settle for that anywhere. We don't, especially not in deep blue Democratic districts where these leaders should actually be listening to our needs. And so justicedemocrats.com/nominate, you can nominate anyone for any district in this country. And, this is a terrible outcome for our country, this election, but we are full steam ahead of trying to rebuild a new Democratic Party from the bottom up. And we need the support of every community and district across the country to do so. Like you said, the only way that we are going to get past and out and against this widespread division that the right and the Democrats lean into is by building a movement of solidarity. And it's not just electoral, it is labor, it is grassroots, it's people in the streets. It is never going to just be us in Congress electing people. It requires people power behind those folks to both elect them and to hold them accountable when we need to. And that's the work.
Absolutely. And look, silver lining on all this, JD Vance will be running for office when Sean Fain leads a general fucking strike in his goddamn face. So I am looking forward to 2028 already. What's going on, Frantifa? If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel right now. Hit that button. And also, you can become a patron and support the show every single week. Get access to bonus episodes and exclusive merchandise. Patreon.com/Bitchuation Room. Do it.